Now we're going to focus on international treaties that are being utilized to help protect species and ecosystems around the world. In 1975, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, or CITES, C-I-T-E-S, was a far-reaching treaty that was signed by 182 different countries. This banned the hunting, the capturing, and the selling of threatened or endangered species. In 1992, the Convention on Biological Diversity Treaty was signed by 196 countries. This occurred at the United Nations Conference on the Environment and Development, also known as the Rio Earth Summit. The Convention on Biological Diversity commits to reducing biodiversity loss and sharing the world's genetic resources. It also includes efforts of trying to control and prevent the spread of invasive species, and it focuses on ecosystems, not just individual species. Key countries have not signed this treaty, including the United States, so implementation has been somewhat slow. The treaty has no severe penalties or enforcement mechanisms, and it has not made much progress in the 15 years of its enactment. However, on a positive note, by 2010, the United Nations, in combination with this treaty, created a global network of over 553 biological reserves in 109 countries, which protected the ecosystems within those countries. Within this treaty, scientists have urged the adoption of emergency action strategy to identify and quickly protect biodiversity hotspots around the world, including those areas that are rich in plant species that are found nowhere else and are in great danger of extinction. These hotspots cover only a little more than 2% of the Earth's land surface, yet they contain over 50% of our world's flowering plants and 42% of our world's terrestrial species. These hotspots are home for a large majority of the world's most endangered or critically endangered species, 1/5 of the world's population. So the CBD has been working to set aside and preserve biodiversity hotspots and focusing on ecosystems and not individual species. In 1973, the Endangered Species Act was passed in the United States. Any decision to remove a species on the list or to add a species to the list of protected species must be based on biological factors alone, without consideration of any economic or political factors. The Endangered Species Act also forbids any federal agency, except for the Department of Defense, to carry out, fund, or authorize any projects that would jeopardize an endangered or threatened species or the habitat with which it lives in. So this law, the Endangered Species Act, allows fines as high as $100,000 to be assessed to a person that creates an illegal action pertaining to a threatened or endangered species on private land. Also, a 1 year in prison could be assessed to the person. So some good news: since this law was passed in 1973, a better job has been done to assess species populations that are critical, threatened, or endangered. So the number of U.S. species on the official endangered and threatened species list increased from 92 in 1973 to more than 1,320 species as of 2011. They amended the law in 1982 to give private landowners economic incentives to help save endangered species living on their lands. And some people believe that the Endangered Species Act should be repealed. Others believe it should be strengthened and modified to focus on protecting ecosystems as well. So the U.S. law for endangered species plus international agreements have been used to help identify and protect endangered and threatened marine species as well as terrestrial species. So now we're going to look at 2 species in the marine environment that have need for protection. 6 of the world's 7 sea turtle species are critically endangered or endangered. Much of this is due to 2 threats. One is loss or degradation of beach habitat, where they come ashore to lay their eggs and their young hatch. The other is the legal and illegal taking of their eggs, which is impacting their population numbers. So did you know that sea turtles have been living on the planet since the time of the dinosaurs, about 110 million years ago? There are 7 different species of sea turtles, 6 of which, including the green turtle, the hawksbill, the Kemp's ridley, the leatherback, the loggerhead, and the olive ridley, can be found throughout the ocean, in both warm and cool waters. The 7th species, the flatback, only lives near Australia. What's amazing about these sea turtles is that after years of traveling the open ocean, they always return to the nesting grounds where they were born to lay their eggs. In their voyage from nesting to feeding grounds, some species travel more than 1,000 miles. In 1981, an international agreement made it illegal to trade all 7 species of sea turtles and their eggs, shells, or meat internationally. Governments are trying to figure out ways to reduce the bycatch issue with fishing fleets, such as requiring new design of fishing gear and changes to fishing practices to make them less likely to capture turtles when they're fishing with nets. Also, marine protected areas are being established to protect important sea turtle habitats, especially those beaches where the sea turtles come to lay their eggs. Out of all 7 species of turtle, the Kemp's Ridley turtle is the most endangered sea turtle. In 1947, 42,000 nests were counted in a single day. The numbers dramatically decreased until the 1980s. Currently, because of protecting nesting beaches and the use of turtle excluder devices in commercial shrimping and fishing, the Kemp's Ridley population seems to be slowly increasing. The green sea turtle nesting populations have not been surveyed long enough to really know what the worldwide population numbers are, even though it is considered to be an endangered sea turtle. Experts estimate that between 120 to 140 years ago, the green sea turtle numbers have declined about 67%. Also, little data is available on the hawksbill sea turtle population, and scientists are continually trying to obtain accurate estimations of the population sizes, but it's tough to do. Tracks in the sand from the sea turtles coming onto the beach to lay their eggs do not last long enough and are tough to see, even though they're trying to do aerial surveys to find out where these nests are. The major loggerhead turtle nesting grounds are in the southeastern U.S. Population of the loggerhead turtle show a decline in Georgia and South Carolina nesting areas, but no decline or possible increase in southern Florida nesting areas. More years of nesting data and population studies are needed to assess what's going on in Florida. In the U.S., the total estimate for loggerhead turtle nests per year range from 68,000 to 90,000. The worldwide population of the loggerhead turtle is not known. It is known, though, that most populations outside of the U.S. are declining. The olive ridley turtle is the most abundant sea turtle in the world. There are probably more than several 100,000 adult females. In 1991, an estimated 610,000 turtles nested in a single week on a beach in India. The flatback turtle current population is unknown. Because of its restricted distribution to Australia, the flatback is considered to be the most vulnerable of all sea turtles in regards to habitat change or exploitation. So this is definitely a species they're trying to keep an eye on for protection. And then finally, as far as the leatherback turtle, there's about 26,000 to 43,000 adult female leatherbacks worldwide. Their numbers do not appear to be declining in the United States. Another marine species, whales, also have been impacted by commercial trading. In fact, 8 out of 11 species of whales are considered to be commercially extinct. Whales are fairly easy to kill because of their large size and their need to come to the surface to breathe. It's estimated in a 50-year period between 1925 and 1975, whalers killed an estimated 1.5 million whales. And that's what led to 8 of the 11 major species being commercially extinct. The blue whale, the world's largest mammal, is on the brink of biological extinction. A commission called the International Whaling Commission estimates that some whale species are recovering, but many conservationists fear that opening the door to any commercial whaling may weaken international disapproval and legal sanctions. So currently there's a ban on whaling, but even though that ban is existent, more than 28,000 whales were hunted and killed up through the year 2010. Most of the nations that still hunt whales are Japan, Norway, and Iceland. They have openly defied the international ban on whaling. As I mentioned earlier, ecosystem protection is a key part of helping these critically endangered and threatened species to recover in their population numbers. So, I mentioned earlier that scientists are urging the adoption of emergency action strategies to identify and quickly protect biodiversity hotspots around the world. That's because these biodiversity hotspots are home for most of the world's endangered or critically endangered species. There are 4 steps to ecosystem protection. The first is restoration. The second is rehabilitation. The third is replacement. And the fourth is creating artificial ecosystems. On the slide, I have listed the first one, restore degraded ecosystems, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Ways in which you can restore a degraded ecosystem is by replanting forests or grasslands or reconstructing coral reefs and re-engineering wetlands. You can also work to remove invasive species to eliminate the competition that's going on between invasive and non-native species, and reintroduce native species in areas where they have been removed either by man, such as the gray wolf in Yellowstone ecosystem, or perhaps native species population numbers that have declined so much because of an invasive species outcompeting them. So introducing native species is helpful as well. So let's look at a case study of Costa Rica again. This is one of the world's largest ecological restoration projects. What ended up happening was that tropical forests were burned and degraded and fragmented for large-scale conversion of the area to cattle ranches and farms. So on the left is a picture of before restoration, and on the right is a picture of after restoration. So what they're doing is they're planting large areas of trees, and the forest is actually being restored and reconnected on a nearby mountain slope, and the goal is to reestablish a tropical dry forest ecosystem over the next 100 years. So you can definitely see a difference in the picture from the left to the right of ecosystem restoration project that's going on in Costa Rica. And by the way, this project actually serves as a training ground for scientists all over the world in regards to doing tropical rainforest restoration. So there are 4 big ideas in this chapter. The first one is that we are greatly increasing the extinction of wild species, and I'd like you to recall the acronym HIPCO, standing for Habitat, Invasive Species, Pollution, Population Growth, Climate Change, and Overexploitation. The second big idea is that we should avoid causing extinction of wild species because of their economic and ecological services that they provide. And then the third one is that we can prevent extinction of species and protect overall biodiversity by using laws and treaties on an international level to protect wildlife sanctuaries and restore degraded ecosystems. And I'd like to add this fourth point, that new species are still being discovered. So researchers on average find about 15,000 new species per year, which is pretty cool. We've actually cataloged over 1.3 million species, and it's estimated that there might be over 8.7 million different species on the planet. So there's quite a few that need to yet be discovered. This is a map depicting the location of 3 species that have just been discovered recently. The flick-flack spider in Morocco, the Darwin's bark spider in Madagascar, and the alanguito in Ecuador and Colombia. These are pictures of the alanguito, which was discovered in 2013. Based on some DNA testing, it proved it was in fact a new species. It was listed as the top 10 new species in 2014 because it resembled a cross between a domestic cat and an American black bear. It's also considered the first new carnivore mammal described in the Western Hemisphere in 35 years. This is the Darwin bark spider. It was discovered in 2009 in Madagascar. It is one of the largest web weaving spiders in the world, with the webs being as far as 82 feet in length. It can build webs over lakes, rivers, and streams, and what's really cool is that the material, the silk, is the toughest biological material in the world ever studied. It's over 10 times tougher than a piece of Kevlar. This is the flick-flack spider in Morocco. It was discovered in 2009, and one unique feature about this spider is that it will actually escape when provoked by doubling its normal walking speed using forward and backward flips, similar to cartwheels. And finally, this is Diane's bare-hearted glass frog that was discovered in 2015 in the mountains of Costa Rica. Some say this frog looks like Kermit the Frog.